Hi, welcome to the second episode of Book Thursdays. What if I told you that one of the main themes in Crime and Punishment is not actually about crime? It's about something much bigger that actually saves people. Because at the heart of this novel, buried under all the suffering and regret, is a truth that most people overlook. Love isn't just a feeling. Sometimes it's the only thing strong enough to pull someone back from the edge. Today we're breaking down Crime and Punishment and the lesson it teaches us about love. Arguably the only thing that truly redeems us. Now, this is a Russian copy of Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. So I'm not going to be reading out any quotes from this book directly. I'll link, if you're interested, this book in the description below so you can have a look at it for yourself in English. So the main character in this novel is a gentleman called Raskolnikov. He is an ambitious young man, but he's also extremely lonely. He believes in logic, not love. He believes in power, not connection. And in his mind, emotions just get in the way. So when life beats him down, when he's broke, desperate, and stuck, he doesn't turn to the people who love him for help. He turns inward, and that's when he makes the worst decision of his life. And that's where I think the real tragedy begins, because the crime is pretty bad. One of the worst things that he does. The worst thing, I think, is how he pushes everybody away. Now, after the crime, no one suspects him, no one is chasing him, but he starts to fall apart inside. And oh my God, if you read this book, you will fall apart with the guy. Honestly, when I was reading this and going through all his mental torments, now spoiler alert, okay, you had your warning if you haven't read this book and you haven't heard of it, I would be surprised, but he murders an old lady. Right, so we get first-person perspective of an actual murderer in this book and the guilt that is just destroying him, all his thoughts and everything that he does post this terrible action. So you're in his head and it's just, it makes you sweat with him, honestly. The way it's written, it's a roller coaster of emotions. But yeah, let's get back into what I was saying before. He avoids his family, he rejects his best friend, and when someone actually tries to love him, he pushes them away too. Love requires us to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable is terrifying if you think that you have to be strong all by yourself. And that's the first lesson. Love isn't just about having people around you, it's about letting them in. How often do we do this in real life? Someone offers support, and we say, nah, I'm fine. Someone cares, and we act like we don't need them. And the more we do this, the more alone, the more isolated we feel. Raskolnikov, the main character, he's not unique. He's in a lot of people. He's just an extreme example of what a lot of people do. We believe that if we're struggling, we have to do it alone. But here's something that we learn from this story, because there's one person who refuses to leave him alone. Sonia. Enter Sonia. She is everything that Raskolnikov isn't. She's poor, she's struggling, and she has suffered more than most. But she isn't bitter, she isn't angry, and most importantly, she doesn't shut the world out. When Raskolnikov admits his crime, she doesn't run, she doesn't judge, she stays, and she says, "How great must your suffering be?" Something like that. The translation. Yeah, that goes straight into the feels. And that's the real power of love. It doesn't try to fix you, it just doesn't abandon you. And you know, sometimes people don't need advice. People don't need to be fixed. People don't need actions. Sometimes people just need to know that they are seen. But here's the interesting part. Raskolnikov doesn't just suddenly wake up after Sonia's love. He resists it. He fights it, because love forces you to confront yourself. And that's not always easy. It's only when he sees Sonia following him while he's on the way to confess, and he sees that she's refusing to leave him behind, something finally breaks inside of him. Love doesn't change you instantly, but it does make change possible. Most people think that strength is in doing things alone. The real strength is allowing yourself to be known. Raskolnikov spends most of the novel running from love, because being loved means being seen. Love means being seen not as a great person, which is what he saw himself as in the beginning of the novel, not as a great man, but just as a person, flawed, human, but still worthy of redemption. And when he finally lets love in, the transformation begins. And actually, it's not even when he confesses to his crime, not when he's in prison for it, admitting to it, and he's walking around with the other inmates, he still feels like he's a bit different and looking down on people. But when he finally accepts Sonia's love, when she touches him and he feels suddenly overwhelmed by feeling, he breaks down and he cries. And then that's when his transformation begins. He starts to be kind to others as well as himself. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever gone through something hard and shut people out? Have you ever thought, no one's going to understand? Or worse, have you thought, I don't deserve their help? And that's Raskolnikov. That's so many of us. But what this book, what Dostoyevsky tries to teach us with this, is that love isn't something you deserve. Love is something you have to accept. And the moment you do, everything starts to shift. In the end, it's not logic or punishment that saved Raskolnikov. Not even suffering. It's love. Because the truth is, guilt doesn't redeem people. Love does. And if you take just one thing from this amazing novel, it's this. Redemption isn't found in suffering, it's in connection. If this message hit home for you, you're gonna love this book for this and for many other reasons. It's in the link in the description below if you want to get it. If you want to go deeper into lessons from classic literature, you might want to check out this video, which I did last week, talking about obsession from Moby Dick. You can subscribe and follow for more.